An interesting, strange fact with traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture. So there are 12 major meridian pathways. Each meridian is attributed to a yin and yang paired organ, such as the kidney has its own meridian pathway, and its yang counterpart would be the bladder. The bladder has its own meridian pathway. And what's becoming more factual with more Western related research is that there is an perceivably invisible organ, an organ that doesn't physically exist, but is attributed as an organ in traditional Chinese medicine, called the triple burner channel, or the sanjiao, which san means 3 in Chinese. And the sanjiao is a very complex organ and channel specified organism. For me, possibly the most interesting organ to discuss. See, the sanjiao can also be attributed to the fascial tissue network. And a lot of people are finding out now, in more modern days, or rediscovering what was already so, is that the fascial tissue, along with your cells, contain structured water crystals. As Dr. Yaki would call it, H3O2. So not simply HO2. So there's a bit of a truth and fallacy when people say that your body's made of 70% water, which you would say 70% structured water. I would say 100% structured water, but 70% capacity limited by genetic predispositions and genetic encoding. That would be another video, because then I will go into a tangent right now. So basically, if anywhere in your body, if you have an injury, just by an acupuncturist checking your pulse, optionally looking at your tongue, but the combination of checking your pulse and seeing your tongue, the tongue is the only muscle that you can physically see. So the tongue gives us so much clinical information from a physical and also a spiritual aspect. It depends on the specialty of the acupuncturist, but the information's there. And you're the CAT scan, you're the X-ray, you're the MRI. Nothing more is needed. Simply with checking your pulse, seeing your tongue classically, we can come up with a very precise diagnosis, not just from a traditional Chinese perspective, but also finding the location or the root cause of exactly where the pathology lies, if it's in a physical location. And if it's not in a physical location, this is where it gets deeper, and this is where it gets more interesting. And this is where you can actually have a deeper, meaningful understanding, with the sanjiao being this mystical organ that is also somewhat of a bridge between physicality, or the substantial, and the insubstantial. What means what you cannot palpate, such as your thoughts, right? You cannot palpate your thoughts. So that's insubstantial, but it's very much as real as you can imagine to be. So what makes it interesting is that one that has practiced thousands of hours of checking many pulses, many tongues per se, one begins to develop the mystery school from within, through actualization, through practice, such as in my experiences. And one will be able to begin to start reading facial morphology, means meaning the mappings of everything in the face. And there's books on that. You can actually look and research facial morphology from, let's say, a Chinese medical perspective, as an example. There's a really good book. I want to say Lillian Bridges. I hope I'm not wrong with that. Lillian Bridges, she, I hope that's her. But the author from one of I call him my sifus, I've been following him since 2012, Jeffrey Yuan. He's an illuminary, and he's a Taoist priest. So by tradition, he teaches orally, so he doesn't write books or transcriptions. He allows other people to do that. So much of his teachings and much of my studies the same. I've been fortunate to have trained within his approaches and his wisdom. There's a great book, I believe it's Facial Morphology by Lillian Bridges. But anyway, in case you're a book person, a lot of it is user friendly. You don't have to be an acupuncturist. A lot of great pictures. I haven't tapped into the book in almost 2 years, but in the future I would like to. Will help to broaden and deepen my own process. However, for those who are working more in the on the occult or more of the field of mysticism. The truth is, or the itch would be in the human conditioning, the itch, add a G or a W to it. But that itch, which opens up the doors to curiosity or may shut down doors, is that you don't necessarily need to pick up a book or seek a person in physical studies. If you're tapped in within your heart, soul, and your mental processes as far as your divine blueprint. And this is where the Sanjiao channel becomes a physical organ within your reality. And this is when you can also start to understand your aura, which is your biosphere, which is your yin and yang, electromagnetic chi dynamic process. I like to say chi dynamic because the chi that we speak of in Chinese medicine, or as we exist, it's dynamically alive and constantly transforming and transmuting. Yin goes to yang, yang goes to yin, yang dies, goes 100% to yin, and yin will die, or one will create the other. There's so many constant flows when it comes to your bioelectromagnetic frequency, and it could all be measured and seen either via the pulse or via one's ability to start to work within their extra senses or extraordinary capacities to simply tap in from my aura to, let's say, your aura. Past, present, future, physical, astral realm, and higher realms included, depending your abilities. And just because one person may have an ability that would seem to supersede another, I would debate that. I don't believe that's true. I don't believe in that. There is not a level of hierarchy. What it is that maybe another person may not be confident in knowing that their divine blueprint is meant for them to work at a certain frequency. And once that person becomes available to this gift and then starts to work with it consciously, then you will see, as I see every single day, there is no separation. I've met people who study nothing at all. Like, I'll give you an example. It might be a little off the topic, but it's a great example, I think. It's my father. I was born by a father. My soul contract was that he only simply needed to birth me and nothing more. So completed our karmic agreement or soul contract, right? And I actually knew this at a young age. I was raised by my mom, and I enjoyed every single minute of it. I don't have any regrets. I never did. And now I'm able to put a deeper understanding as to why. It wasn't personal. I actually love him more than anything in the world. I don't necessarily need to see him, right? As per this soul agreement, he was required. See, he has something, right? So both of my families, to try to get into this really quick, both of my families were born in Puerto Rico. So my father has something that through his indigenous predisposition within his vessel or his body is that he has somewhat of an off and on kill switch when it comes to primal protection or primal attack. As being a true warrior, I'm talking like the real warrior, like samurai, those cats, you know what I'm saying? Back in the day, like the ones that just like they for them, church was war. If they were not with their brethren, fighting for a higher cause, not knowing if they were gonna live or die, and not breathing within that network. See, you wouldn't understand if you're not in it, but for those that feel me, you know what I'm talking about, right? You still have those memories, possibly. But my father had this little switch. So I'll give you a quick story. I don't know why I'm leading to this, but I think it's going to tie up. I hope so. This is a provable story by cats that knew him. So they know my father, Dave, right? David, from North Philly, which for most who know is a very tough area. So back, I would imagine the 60s, right? Somewhere in the 60s, maybe early 70s. My father sitting at a bar, drinking his Budweiser. And he had slicked back hair, and he was a very quiet man in presence, bringing back that switch where the whole point is that you don't have to necessarily train anything. This guy never trained as a boxer. He never trained as a fighter. Yes, he was very athletic. Yes, he was a great second baseman. And yes, the Pittsburgh Pirates, they actually invited him to practice in batting practice, and I guess he didn't take things seriously. So he didn't become a professional baseball player, but he had the potential, he had he had the predisposition, he had the eyes, the ears, he had it, yet he never practiced. And I would argue that it's not that he needed to practice, he just needed to pay attention to it even more. And he probably would have been a Pittsburgh Pirate. I don't know, who knows? However, back to the story. So, you know how people could be funny, just silly, stupid. So this is how it went, you know. Especially in a Puerto Rican neighborhood, so you know what I'm saying. Back in the 70s, oh my God. So my father was sitting there having this beer, and I guess somebody that knew him really well saw him. He's like, yo, what's up, Dave? Paraphrasing here. And he goes to his head, and he goes like this. Like, yo, what's up, Dave? You looking good? Or something like that, of that nature. Like, trying to be funny. And my father wasn't drunk. He got up, and his hand was down. It wasn't a thought. As quickly as I could blink, I can't even do it right now because I'm holding my phone. He just knocked him out. It wasn't a technical job. It was just boom. Knocked him out, face cold. And my father sits back down like nothing ever happened and continues to drink his beer. And he developed a reputation for being that man. And he's been in fights. And I don't remember the name, but there was a professional boxer at the time that knew him from the streets and said, yo, Dave, you need to train some boxing because you have hands I've never seen before. You and I don't even got those hands, right? These fast twitch muscles that some people are genetically born with. You feel what I'm saying? They have this ability. Doesn't mean that you have to tap into it. I would argue that yes, because there is a reason to tap into this primal ability as to why, and to bringing everything back together, as to why I chose to incarnate it under my father's genetic bloodline, is to bring great awareness to the multifaceted abilities of one's ability to exist and their physical prowess, or one's physical prowess is very necessary, right? Because my father did all the fighting so that I didn't have to, per se. You see what I'm saying? So what does that entail with acupuncture and Chinese medicine? I don't know. But actually I do. It's forming now. Genetic predispositions. So as a kid, I had that switch. I call it like a little kill switch. It's to that primal, almost like they call it the truing brain or the reptilian brain that a lot of top secret agents train in. It's in real traditional Kung Fu systems. I've trained in it, right? And that's when I start to tap into this more consciously. But that ability to tap into that switch of going 100% primal, almost like a sociopath, right? But being completely coherent with your presence and completely in alignment to the levels that you or one would have to apply, let's say, self-defense, or have to maybe maim someone, right? Or in my story, how to, if the circumstances permit it, hurt somebody more within their emotional embodiment through neurological warfare. See, my father allowed me the wisdom to attain of what he, not that he couldn't, but his journey was different than mine, right? Was that I needed to understand how people don't heal, and I needed to understand how maybe through violence that some people have strengths, and I needed to experience for myself how to arrive towards something that was or would be more of a higher frequency of being an actual human with human intelligence and being a badass. Like humans, we are here for a reason. So yes, I was fortunate to have trained in Xingyi Chuan, Shape of the Heart, Mind, Fist, and Baguazhang, which is 8 trigram boxing. And initially, I thought it was going to be about me just becoming really powerful and becoming a Kung Fu teacher, not knowing that I was going to get in the field of the healing arts. So again, I'm grateful to my pops over there for living out the story. You see what I'm saying? So living out the past and bringing it into the currency. So in the past, there existed organs that are not palpable, such as the Sanjiao channel, and it's being brought back into the presence of a state of remembrance, and it's like nothing's ever got lost as people are starting to rediscover and remember how one has the ability through their own genetic predisposition, such as in epigenetics, or the study of epigenetics means destiny versus fate, means that instead of choosing fate, you choose to explore destiny, meaning if I have cancer, my destiny is that if I have the ability to attain cancer or turn on the predisposition of cancer cells in my body based on my binary codes within my DNA or genetic bloodline, then I have the ability or the capacity to do what? To turn off those same genetic markers and now heal from an actual tumor or a cancerous tumor per se. And that conversation is all with the mind, with the heart, with taking belief into actualization and implementing something that sounds so insubstantial that one would think that only a surgeon would be able to work with the substantial aspects of your DNA, of your cells, and of operating, right? That's a truth, but that's not limited to that truth. There's other truths that has been around, and as society and the world is awakening to requiring these truths, that's where allopathic medicine and science per se, now all of a sudden they're discovering it. No, what they're doing is they're bending towards your will, towards you becoming more conscious and demanding, requiring more information and feedback. So I may not be fighting any wars as my father had to with his mind and back in the hood in Philly. But he reminded me, and he brings with me the ability to not only remember how to turn on and off this kill switch of pure physical violence, of knowing violence. It becomes a door. It becomes a pathway for me to enter the realm of how one would choose that reality. So that when that person's time comes and they are, let's say in this incarnation, choosing to heal from the wars that they've been dying in life after life after life. This conversation is also in traditional Chinese medicine. Then one would say, or I would say, that I have the capacity to meet them, such as in epigenetics. Sorry, little merengue just started popping. With my own swag, right? In my own way. So I'll meet a certain type of a people that will work within my symphony, my harmonics, my attunement. So as I'm healing them in their journey, such as my pops, such as that stranger that I'm working with that's now my client, they're remembering me more aspects of many wars that I might have suppressed, that may or may not be in this incarnation. It could have been from a bloodline from my father's line or my mother's line. So that's the last part of an interesting fact with traditional Chinese medicine. You see, I'm tying it all up now. that a practitioner who works in spirit and in flesh becomes the needle. Where the needle offers the pathway of working with micro trauma, with the bridge of causing and inserting a needle into a client per se. But both the client and the practitioner just needs to activate that channel pathway, that point, the Sanjiao channel, right? My father knocking somebody out for probably no reason, I don't know, proves that a point is not necessary, it's not required. Which brings me up to maybe my next talk would be the 8 extraordinary channels, which is a set of celestial channels that require no needling. Actually, originally they were not meant to needle because they weren't attributed points to needle. So anyway, I hope this resonated with someone. I had fun with this one. I don't know. Thanks for listening.